Chris Gelser here with
Matt Howell.
On this episode of The First Run, Matt and I are going to discuss Leigh Wannell's The Invisible Man. Back, remember when The Mummy came out with Tom Cruise and they were going to relaunch the Dark Universe, all the Universal classic horror monster movies? They're going to restart all this as a big franchise, and then that film tanked. So then they sold off the property basically to Blumhouse, who brought in Leigh Wannell, who did previously Upgrade, a great little sci-fi action thriller that Matt and I both enjoyed. And he also was part of the Saw franchise previously. I think he was actually in the first film, Matt, if I am correct about that. So we'll have to see what he does with Elizabeth Moss in this reboot of The Invisible Man. We're also going to talk about The One-Armed Swordsman as our brand new sequel to the original martial arts marathon continues. Last week, I got to tell you, I think we were both a little underwhelmed, Matt. We'll see if things can turn around this week. We'll tell you what the big picks are for your physical media this upcoming Tuesday, March 10th. And one item I think I'm going to tell you to buy the digital copy of, which pains me to say. And then, of course, it's the return of Call It, where Matt and I have our Sophie's Choice decisions on some different topics and more. So let's start everything off with a clip from The Invisible Man.
He has figured out a way to be invisible. You know exactly what I'm talking about. He's not dead. I just can't see him.
Okay. Now, I agree with you. Adrian was brilliant. But it wasn't because of anything he invented. It was how he got in people's heads. You think about it. He came up with the perfect way to torture you, even in death. Only thing more brilliant than inventing something that makes you invisible is not inventing it, but making you think he did.
He's not dead, Tom.
Matt, The Invisible Man is here, and it is doing quite well. Much better than The Mummy did, though granted it's a smaller budget. Actually, I think it's on par with The Mummy's returns, but I think it cost $7 million to make, almost nothing. So is this reboot, if you can call it that, of the Dark Universe, has it righted itself, Matt? Is this the way to go? Or is this another Mummy misfire? And then also, if I may interrupt you, why don't you tell the fine folks, what is The Invisible Man all about?
Elizabeth Moss plays a woman married to a genius, we're led to believe some kind of genius inventor, entrepreneur. She is abused by him. If not physically, then at the very least emotionally and psychologically. She decides to escape, and she becomes convinced after his supposed death that he's still alive and is not only alive, but tormenting her invisibly.
So what do we think? Is it Dark Universe now? I don't even know if it's going to be interconnected at all at this point. But have we kind of got things on the right leg here, or should we just call it a day on this whole thing?
I think this is a very entertaining movie. I was really into this thing. I mean, obviously, it helps to have someone of Elizabeth Moss' acting caliber available to do this. It was a very intense, suspenseful, and times shocking, and generally an update that works for The Invisible Man. Now, whether you can say that this is going to lead to some kind of greater Dark Universe, I would hesitate to say that. I don't think that's going to work, and I don't think they should pursue that. But I do like the idea of Blumhouse taking these kind of classic Universal monster properties and kind of giving them a monster spin in their own, or modern spin, and kind of putting their own stamp on it. I think that's a really good idea, and I'm kind of interested to see what else they can come up with.
Have you ever seen the original Invisible Man with Claude Rains from 1933?
I have not. I didn't read the book by H.G. Wells. I believe it's by H.G. Wells. I haven't read that either. So I'm very unfamiliar with The Invisible Man, unless you want to call... I guess my familiarity begins and ends with Hollow Man with Kevin Bacon.
Ooh, yeah, I don't know about that. I actually watched I think I watched the original back in the day when Channel 56 used to run all those monster movies, those classic films. But I recently watched it again in anticipation of seeing this. And let me tell you, I love The Mummy, the one with Karloff. I always felt like that was, out of all those classic Universal films, probably the scariest. But there's something unhinged about that Invisible Man from 1933 with Claude Rains that just totally works. And the special effects are insane for that time period. I'm watching it and the whole time I'm like, how do they do that? It is really effective. So Leigh Wannell shows up to helm this new version of the Invisible Man. And let me tell you, man, this thing works, right? I mean, we get some top shelf thrills in this thing. Not only was it terrifying with these kind of longish static shots, right, where we focus just for a few seconds, right, on a corner, in a chair, whatever, is he there, right? But there's also these smaller moments, Matt, where the film is just as terrifying as it is with its exceptionally effective jump scares when they do occur. There's this one particular scene, Matt, that gave me just as much, the same amount of chills as any of the traditional horror scare scenes where Moss's character is talking to somebody else and she receives kind of this ultimatum, right? And when that dialogue exchange happens, it's like, oh my, I actually was like, you know, I think I audibly gasped, right? This thing is so effective. And why it's also so good is because it's rooted in these real-life horrors as well. The abuse that Moss receives as this guy's spouse, right? You never see it. Wannell is so deft at explaining this just with the opening scenes of the film, right? How she gets her stuff together and she's slowly trying to kind of sneak out quietly out of the house to leave him. I'm not really spoiling anything. I mean, it's the opening few minutes of the movie. But he tells us so much just with that kind of her covert exit of what she's been going through. And then, of course, there's some more dialogue later on in the film, but nothing is ever really expressly told. And the whole film kind of works like that. And it is, I was just really blown away by how effective this thing is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that initial 10-minute sequence in the beginning of the film, that's like a gut punch, man. I mean, that thing was, I was really on the edge of my seat from the word go on this thing, and everything else after that is kind of like you're trying to catch your breath. You know, Elizabeth Moss is absolutely fantastic in this from beginning to end, and she really sells this kind of unhinged thing. And I do like, you don't see the abuse, and at the same time, they also leave some things ambiguous, which I appreciated, where, you know, maybe it's not as cut and dry as you'd think. So again, I think the way they kind of did everything was just was absolutely fantastic. I think it was a pleasant surprise in the kicking off of the spring season. Yeah,
I mean, it's very Hitchcockian at times as well, how our antagonist is gaslighting Moss, his character, and trying to isolate her, right, and maybe think she's going crazy, or at least think that everybody around her thinks she's going crazy. And it's just so expertly done. I was really just blown away by this thing. Even its use of sound or the lack thereof, the score when it hits, the effects, right? And then also it opens the door for a sequel. I think they've already announced an Invisible Woman film. Now, from what I understand, it's actually not directly related to this. Like, I don't think Moss takes over or shows up in this thing potentially in some capacity, or maybe she does. I don't know. Either way, though, just there's a lot of really fascinating themes explored in this film, and its twists and turns are just, it's just classic thriller mystery type stuff in here with some really good scares, some great effects. Matt, I'm going to give The Invisible Man an A-. I think this may be the best film we've seen so far this year.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd give it an A-. I'd give it a B+, a really strong B+. I agree with you. It probably is the best film we've seen so far this year. But at the same time, it's still the first quarter, so we'll see how that continues throughout the year.
I got to see this in the Dolby Theater. How about you?
I saw it in a regular old standard theater.
Just with 2 speakers, so it's just running in stereo, and then
I guess so, yeah. Well, there was actually a guy standing behind there with like a paper bullhorn that it was like playing through a speaker. It's interesting. It's like a throwback to 1933. Yeah,
I would not have expected that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've had a chance to see The Invisible Man, did you see it in a Dolby Theater? Did you see it in IMAX? Did you see it the same way Matt did? Which sounds horrible. Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Matt, let's spend a few minutes and talk about what's coming up on your physical media picks. I think I've finally settled on a name for this. We used to call it Blu-ray and DVD, but who buys DVDs now? So, and then I switched to home video picks, but now I think physical media picks is the way to go. Okay. Even though we do have a streaming pick later on in the segment.
Right.
And I'm going to recommend you buy a digital copy of a film, which just,
You're setting up your rules and then immediately breaking them as you always do.
That's right, because I'm a bad boy.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hear a clip from a movie that basically nobody went to see, including us.
Alrighty, here it is. We filtered his communications, and it seems Mr. Fleming is selling Callisto tomorrow at the Turkish Derby, Velefende Hippodrome. Of course, this particular racetrack is popular with a syndicate of wealthy businessmen.
No doubt with connections to international arms deals, drug trade, and...
All parties who might be interested in Callisto. Familiarize yourselves. Syndicate members, wealthy horse owners expected to attend. Flag anyone Fleming could be in business with.
I want to help. Look, I am not just some frightened girl in your witness protection program. You need help getting in and out of someplace? I can do it. I can hack any system, and I can do it fast. You need me, Mrs. Bosley, and don't tell me I can't do it because I know I can. I'm done sitting still. I've had a taste. I want more. I want in.
Unfortunately, it didn't seem like a lot of other people did. That is from Elizabeth Banks's Charlie's Angels reboot. That just did not perform well at all. I haven't seen it, Matt. You haven't seen it either, correct?
I have not, no.
Yeah, well, it includes a gag reel, 5 deleted scenes, and 4 behind-the-scenes featurettes on the making of the film. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's a anti-women film thing. I never felt any juice for this, right? Nothing about it really, outside of K-Stew, there's nothing really about it that made me excited to go see this thing.
I mean, I think part of it is the property. I mean, as we get further and further away from the 70s and we end up getting older and older, I think that appeal is starting to lose itself on some of that stuff. So I think that's part of it. And obviously, I was never that big of a fan or that juice for the ones from the 2000s. So I don't think why. I mean, they obviously did well enough to have a sequel, but I don't know why that there was this thought that there'd be a big clamoring audience for something like this.
Well, I mean, it made McG a household name, those first couple films.
Yeah, but I mean, that was what, 2000s?
Yeah. Fair enough. Maybe it's good. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to check it out at some point. But you can now rent it as well or buy it. But Matt, here's the one, and I didn't choose this for your clips because, again, there's like no clips online where there's not just a week's worth of profanity in it. But the Safdie brothers' Uncut Gems, it's getting its physical release. Includes a making of featurette. All right, that's it. But if you buy it from iTunes, Matt, here's what you get. Behind the scenes with the cast and crew of Uncut Gems and a featurette detailing the 10-year process behind the script, how Kevin Garnett took acting cues from Sandler, and the Safdie brothers' unique approach to filmmaking. Plus, an exclusive director's commentary with Josh and Benny Safdie, exploring a gallery behind-the-scenes photography. Listen to the A24 podcast featuring conversation between the Safdies and Paul Thomas Anderson, and watch a brand new short from the film from the Safdie brothers titled Goldman vs. Silverman, starring Adam Sandler.
All
so,
right.
What do you think? Is this the future? That the studio is going to continue to push this to digital?
Maybe. I mean, it costs less for them, right? I mean, they don't have to actually pay to produce a physical copy, none of the packaging, none of the shelf space in Best Buy or Target or wherever. So, yeah, I mean, that would be the way to do it. But the thing that always freaks me out, and even I've bought into digital media almost pretty wholeheartedly at this point, but I remember when ebooks were just starting to become a thing and like Kindle was first coming out, that like somebody had lost the rights to a book. I think it was like 1984. And then everybody who bought it just had it removed from their Kindle. Like they just couldn't have it anymore because the person, the publishing house, lost the rights to it. And it always just makes me wonder like what's going to happen. Like that could happen at any time. Like you don't really own it anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're not buying it. You're buying a pass to view it, basically, right? You have a one-time rental fee that they could take it away at any point.
Mm-hmm. And you can't like sell it to recoup it. If you're tired of it or anything like that,
Exactly. It's just, I mean, you can download copies to your hard drives and stuff, but that's a lot. That takes up a lot of space if you do that for everything that you buy digitally. I've thought about getting a Blu-ray burner and doing that for some of my digital copies just in case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know though.
But I mean, does that also make us sound like we're a bunch of like doomsday preppers, except for something super unimportant like movies?
Probably. But then there's also too, what they call it, disc rot? DVDs or Blu-rays where the what is it exactly? The ones and zeros basically fade from the disc where it won't.
Yeah, it starts to break down. I forget. I did look into it. I forget why that happens, but yeah, basically the disc image starts to degrade.
So really, it's a no-win situation. Poop. Also coming up for your physical media needs is Bombshell, which is a story of the Roger Ailes scandal at Fox News. I've seen this, and it is not terribly good. It, coming from a big lefty, Matt, even for me, it feels very like, liberals trying to stick it to Roger Ailes, which of course he deserves it, and I'm happy he's dead. But it doesn't. It plays out though, kind of like this liberal fantasy about what it was like being there, and it loses any real sense of authenticity. You never really feel for any of the characters in the film. It's all just so in your face and kind of blatant. Some of the performances aren't particularly good. Like Margot Robbie is nominated for an Academy Award for this thing. She plays a composite of a bunch of other people. It's just not. It's not good. What else we got? Loose, Matt, is coming out. I know you love that one. That's a German micro-budget horror film that we discussed. Includes 2 short films by the writer and director Tillman Singer, a new interview with Singer as well, and more. Spies in Disguise, which I'm told is a fantastic little animated film featuring Will Smith and Tom Holland, is being released. There's a steelbook from Best Buy, and Target has a digipack. There's a bunch of making of featurettes and some music videos. Did you see Spies in Disguise with the little one?
I did not. I had no juice to see it.
Fair enough. I hear it's actually pretty good. Little Joe, starring Ben Whishaw. You may know him as Q from the James Bond series and other stuff that I probably don't care so much about, is coming out. Alice, a single mother, is a dedicated senior plant breeder at a corporation engaged in developing a new species. Against company policy, she takes one home as a gift for her teenage son, Joe. It's supposed to be a horror film or something involving plants. I don't know. Day of the Triffids reboot, maybe. Inherit the Viper, Josh Hartnett, Bruce Dern, and Chandler Riggs of Walking Dead fame. Call, as you may know him as. Crime thriller about 3 siblings in Appalachia getting by as local opioid dealers trying not to get caught in the spiral of violence that comes with the territory. I Hate the Man in My Basement. After his wife's death, Claude struggles to appear normal while living with a secret. I heard that's supposed to be a relatively good independent horror film. A Korean film called The Witch Subversion, which is, I guess, is supposed to be part of at least a trilogy, is being released. A high school student with amnesia tries to uncover what has happened to her, Matt, all leading her into deeper troubles, ultimately revealing a darkness she could not have imagined. You're new to Blu-ray? Criterion is giving us Salesman. 4 relentless door-to-door salesmen deal with constant rejection, homesickness, and the inevitable burnout as they go across the country selling very expensive Bibles to low-income Catholic families. It's a brand new 4K restoration undertaken by the Academy Film Archive. Audio commentary from 2001 featuring the directors. A television interview from 1968 with the directors. A new appreciation of the film by actor Bill Hader. A 2016 episode of Direct Documentary Now that parodies this film. And more. Have you seen, I know you've watched Documentary Now. Have you seen all the episodes? Are you familiar with this one that they're making fun of?
Yeah, I have seen all of the episodes, yes.
Fair enough. The 10 Commandments is getting its release. They're including the 1923 silent film version as well as the Charlton Heston the Charlton Heston classic from 1956. It's a digibook series with this one. There is an in-depth 73-minute documentary about the making of the film, commentary on the 56 version by Catherine Orison, author of Written in Stone, making Cecil B. DeMille's epic The 10 Commandments, newsreel footage of the film's New York premiere, and more. Scream Factory is giving us Bug from William Castle. This is a film, Matt, about a bunch of giant carnivorous cockroaches that are about a foot long that terrorize a city. Includes a new audio commentary with film historian Troy Howarth. I've heard of this film. I hear it's actually quite good and really kind of gross and gets under your skin and disturbing. Scream is also releasing the... How do I put this? I guess I'll say cult classic Inseminoid. A group of it's basically exactly what it sounds like. A group of scientists are working in a lab located on a distant planet. One of them, Sandy's attacked, assaulted, and impregnated by a monstrous creature. She then begins to stalk her colleagues one by one, killing them and drinking their blood. It's a brand new, very English exploitation making of featurette about Inseminoid is included in this film. A new audio interview with Norman J. Warren and some archived interviews as well. I've heard about this thing. It's supposed to be really just off-putting and not appropriate. So you can finally pick up Inseminoid here domestically. I think it was available as part of the Amicus set that was released a couple years ago that was imported from the UK, but they didn't get the rights here because it looks like Scream Factory did. Masked and Anonymous. This is the movie co-written by Bob Dylan that features a performance by him. A singer whose career has gone on a downward spiral is forced to make a comeback to the performance stage for a benefit concert. Features Jeff Bridges, John Goodman, Penelope Cruz, Jessica Lange, Luke Wilson, Angela Bassett, Bruce Stern, Mickey Rourke, and more. Includes an all-new interview with the director, Larry Charles, and an older commentary by Charles, as well as some deleted scenes. Stuff getting released on 4K, Matt. Well, there's a couple steel books are coming out. First off, Beauty and the Beast, the live-action version, is getting its 4K release. Includes a Best Buy steel book. And A Quiet Place, the horror film from Krasinski, is featuring, of course, him and Emily Blunt, is getting a Mondo-designed steel book, which looks pretty cool. Your straight-to-DVD pick of the week, I think, Matt, we should probably think about checking out, is John Henry, Justice Hits Hard. Terry Crews stars as an ex-gang member named John Henry. He's a quiet man with a violent history. John is forced to revisit his troubled past in order to save two immigrant kids on the run from his former gang leader, played by Ludacris. Set in the gritty streets of South Los Angeles, John Henry is an action-packed crime drama about reconciliation, redemption, and transformation. I've seen a clip from this film, Matt, and it looks delightfully horrible. What should we be streaming this week?
So in celebration of trailer, as the kids would say, dropping for the new Candyman remake, spiritual sequel, I would recommend to go ahead and recommend the original starring Tony Todd. It's available streaming on Netflix. It is the story of a woman who goes to the Chicago ghetto of Cabrini Green and learns the tales of an urban legend of a boogeyman named Candyman who turns out to be way more real than she expected.
I haven't watched it since it came out, and it's been sitting in my queue. I think I do want to check it out as well. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I that movie really messed me up because there's the castration of a 9-year-old kid with Down syndrome, and that really messed me up as a 12-year-old. I
don't remember that. I remember, man, I remember so little about that movie. I just remember thinking, oh, that's not too good, but I may very well have been wrong, which is crazy for me to even say. So I had a couple things I wanted to talk about briefly, Matt. I'm curious to get your opinion on. Did you hear about the Star Wars novelization of The Rise of Skywalker and how they verified that Palpatine was indeed a clone and he had transferred his consciousness into the clone prior to dying?
Yeah, I saw the headlines. I never really got into the details of it, but that makes sense. I even read somewhere a headline that was something about how Rey's father was like a failed clone of Palpatine. It wasn't even just his son. It was like an actual version of him, like an attempted clone of him. So I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, at this point, I don't have much, which is sad to say. I don't have much juice. Again, I'll use that term yet again in this episode for the Star Wars sequels.
All right. Thoughts about the new Batmobile reveal today from Matt Reeves?
Initially, I wasn't super stoked about it. It looks like something out of Mad Max, really, or something that he swiped from the Death Proof set. But from what I understand, it's still supposed to be still very early in Batman's career, although you would think a billionaire industrialist could do better than getting a souped-up 69 Camaro.
From what I understand, my brother-in-law is a huge Batman guy, and he said that I think it's supposed to be, this is year 2.
Right.
So he's been Batman for about, he's in the second year of being Batman. And have you seen Francesco Francavilli's Batman 1972 stuff?
I have not, no.
So you should Google that. It looks very similar to that, and I kind of like it. I think it's kind of cool looking.
Okay.
And it fits, I think, like you said, maybe that timeline that he's in his second year and still kind of piecing stuff together and figuring things out. So I'm curious to see how that all shakes out. And then finally, I wanted to ask you, what did you think about the delay in No Time to Die being pushed to November from its May release date?
Universal needs a win for sure. Their last two films that they thought were going to be tentpoles kind of underperformed. So if there's the risk of the coronavirus and impacting ticket sales, I guess they got to do what they got to do and push it back to November. Although, to be fair, I mean, Bond was always kind of a late fall release kind of thing anyway, so maybe it's just kind of riding the ship. What'll be interesting to see is how many other kind of these tentpole properties that are starting to pop up that we were getting excited for end up getting pushed back as well.
Yeah, I was thinking just about that because listen, the Chinese market now is a huge part of the box office returns for these films and how they're deemed to be successful. So I think it makes sense. It's too bad. I was really excited about seeing it. Now I've said I have to wait like 8 months, but still, I think it'll hopefully be worth the wait. We'll see. Good times. All right, Matt, why don't we keep our martial arts marathon rolling along, and let's spend a few minutes talking about the One-Armed Swordsman.
Listen to me, and listen well now, while you still can. Our teacher's the best swordsman in the land, and you're his senior pupil. But if anyone watched you using that sword, they'd say you never had a lesson.
Now wait. You're the only one in the school who can use a sword, the way you tell it anyway. But I'd like a try at you.
Look, young lady, I won't fight you. I'm too much in your father's debt.
Don't you dare, young lady, me. Use my name. You know it, don't you? You've heard it often enough now. And if you're indebted to my father, why are you deserting him then? Anyway, you're not leaving here till you've crossed swords with me.
All right, if you insist then. But I won't fight with swords, though. With bare hands, so there's no mistakes.
Yeah, there was one mistake, unfortunately.
Which was that?
That's the intro to the fight that makes him become the One-Armed Swordsman, man.
Oh, that's very true.
So we have so this clan gets attacked by some, marauders, some pirates, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And this guy who's basically the caretaker of the house fights them off as best he can, and he ends up dying. So his dying wish is he asks the master to take his son into the group and train him, which he does. But he's always kind of treated Matt kind of like an outsider, as really not part of the group. Though he is quite good at his martial arts, and he runs afoul of some of the other students in the school and the clan. I'm not quite sure what the proper verbiage is. You may have to correct me. And in doing so, somebody does a little sneak attack and robs him of his arm. So then he kind of is a little upset about it, and then he starts to train and learns how to fight using his left hand and becomes a one-armed swordsman, and somehow, for some reason, seeks redemption, even though his own people betrayed him. That was one of the weird things I couldn't really wrap my head around. Particularly, he goes to save the person responsible for him losing his arm. I gotta admit, I'd probably be holding a bit of a grudge. But that's just me. So last week, I was not that impressed with the legendary weapons of China. So we were 0 for 1 with 4 to go. So how does the One-Armed Swordsman play out, Matt? Well, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a hell of a lot more than we did last week's entry. What did you think?
Yeah, I enjoyed it more for maybe the simple reason that this had a coherent narrative. And it had a very kind of, dare I say it, almost like traditional old Hollywood type narrative where, there's this love story, the warrior on the mend shacks up with a well-meaning peasant woman. There's kind of this whole process of, like you said, redemption. And it seems like it has like these kind of undertones of young people in society kind of message in flashing air quotes kind of thing that you should be paying attention to. And the fight scenes, for the most part, I mean, they are appropriately ridiculous, which is partly why I enjoy these so much, but they're not so ridiculous that they really kind of beggar belief or anything like that. It seems like I think this is a pretty early Shaw Brothers film, and like you can obviously see the seeds of what they're going to become as they go further on.
I agree. I think this was much better than last week's entry, and I did enjoy like you said, I think this one had a rock-solid narrative. That had stuff I can get behind, things I understood. Now, I think there's some translation issues here, where some of the, I think that always happens where some of the dialogue just really kind of makes no sense for what's happening in the actual scene, or it's just not logical at all.
Right. Well, that's part of these things' charm, but
Right.
the kind of seriousness of this it's kind of more jarring than it would be in some of the other films.
So I had a question for you. Why did they hide the major bad guy, the master that from the bad clan who was coming to kill everybody? Like, he's always off screen or showing what? Do you have any idea why they did that? Is it something I didn't get?
Yeah, I thought maybe it would be like it would end up being related to the woman who rescued him, but I think it was just one of the earlier attackers from earlier in the film who got a cut in his face. I think that was it. I don't think it was another student.
Oh, okay.
Like that. It was like one of the original attackers who got driven off from the beginning.
Oh, I totally missed that. That's right, because he had okay. See, I'm an idiot. That's what happens when you watch the film over 2 days.
Yeah, it does happen. I mean, I did the same thing. I had to kind of go back to it, but after a while, I was like, why is this guy always in shadow? Who is he going to be? So I was really starting to pay attention to what this guy was going to be.
And I also enjoyed how smug they were with their trap swords or whatever the weapons are called.
That just like scream plastic as they're swinging those things around.
But I love to every time the trick or the trap works, they always have this grin like, ha ha, gotcha. It is just so over the top. There's a great chopstick death in here that I quite enjoyed, the chopstick killing.
Yeah.
I still struggle with the weird redemption arc, I guess because he feels since the clan accepted him, even though a lot of the students never did. But I guess the master did, right? So he wants to come back and help.
He says that he's only helping the daughter because he wasn't, not because for her sake, but for the master's sake, who's her father. It's like it's because it would devastate him or whatever.
I guess, but I don't know if it was me.
Well, that's why you're not. That's why you're not a martial artist, Chris. I mean, you're not an honorable martial artist. What can I say?
That is the exact reason why. And I also, if you think about it, how crazy and how random the entire plot of this film is and how lucky it is, because they would not have defeated this evil clan if he hadn't lost his arm. It's like this weird kind of Deus Ex Machina thing where everything kind of works out because the way this super special trap weapon works, that he just happened to be training in a martial art that would allow him to counter it. It's beautiful, the synergy of it, how everything just kind of works out that way.
Some things are just meant to be, Chris. Sometimes you're just meant to be a one-armed swordsman,
That's true. So overall, like I said, I think I enjoyed this. A much stronger narrative. Some of the performances, from what you can garner, are quite good. The martial arts, the sales feel a little stronger. Last week they felt very choreographed to me. Not so much this time. Still a little bit, but I also always do love that just bright crimson red for the blood. That's always a nice little touch from that bygone era of the 60s. So I'm going to give Matt, the One-Armed Swordsman, a B.
Are you? Okay. I'm going to give it... It wasn't as quite effective as for me, so I gave it a B-. Wasn't quite to the level of ridiculousness that it was way too competent and straight as far as I was concerned, which is, not what I come into these things for.
I love that that's your grading curve, is that it's not quite weird enough to get a higher grade than that.
Yeah, well, that's just the way it is, man.
I can respect that. You can actually watch The One-Armed Swordsman on Amazon Prime right now. You just make sure, though, right, Matt, that you watch the 1967 one, because there's a later one, right? Or is it a remake or a reboot? Or
I'm not familiar with it, but I remember when I searched One-Armed Swordsman and I saw it, I'm like, this doesn't look right. And I noticed it was made in the 70s, and I was like, that's not the right one.
There you go. And if you've seen it, shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com as our martial arts marathon rolls along. All right, Matt, now it's going to be the return of Call It. We're going to have a couple decisions to make. I got some tough ones for you this week. I have a total. It was last week we had the overlapping stuff like what 3 times, two out of 3 times. So I have 7 this time, just in case.
Oh wow!
So
I struggled to get 3.
So I can always pocket some for later. And God bless you. I think you sneezed.
I had a bit of a coughing fit there. Sorry, I wasn't fast enough on the mute button.
The damn coronavirus. All right, let's go ahead and hear a clip from the first segment of the first one I'm going to give you, Matt. So here's a clue of what your first film is going to be.
Are either one of these any good? Sir?
What?
Are either one of these any good?
I don't watch movies.
Well, have you heard anything about either one of them?
I find it's best to stay out of other people's affairs.
You mean you haven't heard anybody say anything about either one of these?
Nope.
Well, what about these two?
Oh, they suck.
These are the same 2 movies? You weren't paying any attention.
No, I wasn't.
I don't think your manager would appreciate it.
I don't appreciate your ruse, ma'am.
I beg your pardon?
Your ruse, your cunning attempt to trick me.
I was only pointing out that you weren't paying any attention to what I was saying.
I hope it feels good.
You hope what feels good?
I hope it feels so good to be right. There's nothing more exhilarating than pointing out the shortcomings of others, is there?
So that, of course, is a clip from Kevin Smith's first film, Clerks. That, of course, is Randall, who runs the video store. So, Matt, here's your first call. Are you ready? 2 seminal 90s comedies for me. 2 very formative films that kind of made me who I am in a sad, pathetic way. Call it Clerks or Swingers?
Clerks all day, and it's not even close for me. I never really understood the appeal of Swingers. I saw it. I thought it was fun, but it became like kind of like a calling card or like a phenomenon, a force for some people, and I was just not one of those people. I was much more on the wavelength of Clerks, as evidenced by Randall and Olaf and everybody else. Interesting.
So I was one of those people. I got into swing back at the time as well. I've always kind of loved that whole, 40s, 50s thing with Sinatra, and I've 30s with the swing music. I've always loved that stuff. So that film really spoke to me. In fact, too, I think I'd broken up with somebody when that movie came out, too, which even kind of adds to it, right? But if I had to go one or the other, I think I have to go Clerks, because it is a funnier film. I think it's so, too, it's so, how do you put it? It's so raw, right? And so it's so pure in its insanity. It's done exceptionally cheap, right? Kevin Smith maxed out all of his credit cards to make it. It has this very guerrilla, filming feel to it, and it is hilarious. Now, I haven't watched it in probably 15 years, so I'm a little nervous about revisiting it. I rewatched Swingers about 2 years ago, and it's still, for me, held up. It's a little problematic at some points, but for the most part, I still enjoyed it. I don't know. I've wanted to do a big retrospective on Kevin Smith's career for a while now. I think we've even talked about it, but I think in the end I have to go Clerks.
It's the right choice.
Thank you. What do you got for me?
All right. So in honor of something we talked about a little bit earlier, Matt Reeves showing off the new Batmobile, call it the Keaton Batmobile or the Bale Batmobile?
So that Batmobile with a tumbler.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Now, what's cool about Tim Burton's version is it's very sleek, right? It's not practical. It's very long.
Yeah, it is. It's incredibly long. You could land a plane on that hood.
And I think from what I understand, if I remember correctly too, it would max out at 35 miles an hour. But the tumbler is very different, right? It's one of the worst lines from Batman Begins. It's a black tank, or whatever the guy says, right? The cop says. There's a lot of kind of cringy lines in that film if you watch it now, even back then. There's also the weird thing in The Dark Knight. Is it The Dark Knight where he says, I want to keep things close to the chest? which I think is the English version. It's close to the vest here, right? That's what we say. And what makes it much more weird is that they use it twice in The Dark Knight. It always was weird to me. Clearly so much so it's stuck in my head even now. Either way, if I got to go with the Tumbler or the Batmobile, I guess I got to go Tumbler. I guess. It just because it's got that jumping ability and it can blow up bridges, and I like how you it shifts modes where it drops you down into kind of like a fighter pilot kind of thing or whatever, when you have to shoot stuff, and yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm gonna go with the Tumbler. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the Tumbler too. Just seems much more practical and like it could actually be terrifyingly do stuff, and not for nothing, it also transforms into the bat bike thing that he's got going on, which is pretty cool too. So I'm definitely going to go with that one. Although when I was a kid, I thought that Keaton Batmobile was pretty dope.
Yeah, I did too. I thought it was awesome back then. I even had a model of it. The old plastic models.
Oh yeah, I remember. I'd put them together and then never paint them.
Yep, I never put it together. So, all right, you ready?
Yeah.
We always like a little Kurt Russell around here. Big Trouble in Little China or Escape from New York?
Ooh, boy, that's a toughie. No, I guess my decision is partly going to be based on the fact that I haven't seen Escape from New York in probably like 15, 20 years. It's been a long time. Well, yeah, I guess 15, 20 years. It's been a really long time since I've seen Escape from New York, so I don't remember that much about it. But as problematic as it is in parts, Big Trouble in Little China is still a lot of fun. When it's on, it's really on. So I'm going to go with Big Trouble in Little China.
I think I have to agree with you. I watched Escape from New York. I think it was on Criterion for a while. And it might be on Shudder now. I'm not sure. Maybe Netflix. It has its charms, but as a whole film, it's not as good as its ideas, unfortunately. And Big Trouble, as you said too, is maybe a little problematic at times, but it's still a lot of fun. And it's probably the most fun Kurt Russell performance that I can think of outside of Old Death Proof, and but that classic 80s stuff. And I confess I haven't seen Tango and Cash, right? So I can't really. I bought
You're not missing much.
I bought it for $5 as part of this when they had that Stallone sale.
Okay.
Because I like Stallone. I was in a weird Stallone mood, so that sale hit at the exact right moment for me, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm gonna go Big Trouble in Little China as well.
Very good. All right. So Tarantino, as he's wont to do, is messing with us yet again. So the oft talked about Kill Bill is getting more traction now. He's talking about it a lot more, saying he's talked to Uma about it, that she's on board, which is interesting considering all of the kind of fallout from the last couple of years or surrounding that film and their relationship. But I guess maybe she needs to make a mortgage payment. So, if we had to pick one or the other, Kill Bill 3 or the fabled Tarantino Trek?
I think I'm going to go... I would interject that I would want the Tarantino James Bond film, which he would set in the 50s and have it be black and white, but I know it's not a choice.
It's not an option, right?
I'm thinking Kill Bill 3. I am not... Tarantino, considering Roddenberry's vision, I just don't know how Tarantino fits in that. I don't know. It would be maybe a fun little exercise, but in the end, I just don't know if it works. It would be a total upending of the property, I think, and I just don't know if it's something I have that much heat for, or as Matt would say, juice. Be it freshly squeezed or not. So I'll go Kill Bill 3. What about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Kill Bill 3 too. 3 as well. Kill Bill is my unabashed favorite set of Tarantino films. I don't care what anybody says; they're his best films for me. And as much as of a Trekkie as I am, and just by the fact of I'm morbidly curious to see what he could do with that property, because I can't even fathom like seeing like a hyper violent, filthy Star Trek of some kind.
Yeah.
I would be so curious to see that. If I had to choose, I would happily give up a Tarantino Trek for Kill Bill 3.
You don't want to see Sam Jackson as Spock?
No, I don't. You think he'd be Spock? No, like Sam Jackson would be some like grizzled admiral sending them off to go kill some Klingons or something.
But I'm telling you, I know, I can't remember what's on the calendar for next week, but we are going to cast Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek movie at some point.
Okay.
We absolutely have to do that. That would be hilarious. Using, of course, his stable of actors.
Right.
We're supposed to do best 5 animated films since 2010 because we're discussing Onward.
I mean, Brad Pitt would have to be the captain.
He'd be Kirk.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you would think you would be tempted to say Leonardo DiCaprio, but no, that's not the right answer.
No, it's not.
And then like Bruce Willis would be Scotty without a Scottish accent.
Pam Grier would be Uhura.
Sure. Maybe bring Vivica Fox back because she didn't get enough screen time in Kill Bill.
That's true. That's a good pick. So who's Michael Madsen play?
Oh, jeez. Who does he play?
McCoy? Or just a
No.
security guard? Security.
Yeah, he's like a red shirt.
I'm going to have to seriously think about this.
You know, if I can pull in one person outside of the Tarantino stable, I would love for Caller Urban to come back and play McCoy in that film because I think he could slip right in, man. He wouldn't even miss a beat.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that would work out okay. Interesting.
No, Madsen would be. It would be hilarious for Madsen to be Chekhov. Suddenly, like the oldest guy, he's supposed to be like this teenager in the original show. He's now Chekhov.
I kind of like him as Khan.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Let's think about that. Or Walken as Khan. That might be a better choice.
Mm.
All right. I'm going to work out the beats on that. All right, here's my last one for you. You ready? Man.
I'm ready.
That's a perfect segue for me too, Matt. We've gotten through Star Wars episodes 7 through 9. So, Star Wars 7 through 9 or the Kelvin timeline for Star Trek?
Oh, jeez.
So this is Star Trek Into Darkness, and Star Trek Beyond.
Yeah. So I'm a much bigger Star Wars fan, although I have a real love for Star Trek. And it can depending on the day, it can kind of swing either way. But man,
because the Force Awakens is solid. It's fun.
Yeah.
I think The Last Jedi is great, but The Rise of Skywalker,
it's tough.
It's worse than I think any of the Kelvin films.
Yeah,
I think every one of those movies are better. Even the mishandling, I think, of Khan and Into Darkness, I still think it's a more enjoyable film. It's a better.
Yeah.
movie.
You know what? It may be blasphemy to say this, and I'm upset that I'm even going to. But I'm going to go with my initial gut. My initial gut said to stay with the Kelvin films, because I just think overall the quality is better and they're more fun to watch.
I did not expect to hear that from you. That is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree with you, which is sad because we would have agreed on every single one of these. Because Han dies, spoiler, right? So that stunk.
Yeah, but that was probably the emotional height of that entire trilogy.
Yeah.
That was well done. That was well executed.
Well, you also know or I would even argue that Chewie losing, the revelation that Chewie was alone, I think may have been even more emotionally impactful than even Han's passing. Han's obviously a bigger character, or maybe it's just the fact that was the only real moment in that film of any authenticity that I actually felt anything for anybody in the movie.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I got it. Wow, yeah. I know you are a bigger Star Wars fan than I, though if I had to choose one of the other series, generally I'd probably go Star Wars. But when we limit it to the sequels versus the Kelvin timeline, Pine does some great work as Kirk. Urban is great as McCoy. And even in Star Trek Beyond is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. So, yeah, I guess I'm going Kelvin too. That's sad.
Yeah, it really is. I need to rewatch those films. I haven't watched those in a long time.
Okay.
All right, so my
out.
final one is pretty weak sauce. We're going to go out with a whimper, okay? But I was struggling. So here we go. So The Hunt. Trailers are out, and I watched it, and it was not what I was expecting with the message it was trying to deliver. I'm not even sure what message it's trying to deliver here. So are you still interested in seeing this thing, or should it have stayed on the shelf? Yay or nay?
I'm still interested. I think I had read, too, that this was what the movie was about, is that the lefties were the bad guys in the movie, which was a weird thing. Why people are saying, why are everybody so up in arms about it? It's basically everything you've basically been saying for years anyway.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm still interested in it. Is it going to be good? I don't know. I mean, like we said, I think we talked about it. It could be Cabin in the Woods or it could be Red Dawn. You know, 2 films that were shelved for a long time. I'm still interested in checking it out. What about you?
I'm going to give it a very weak yay. I would be surprised. I was a little surprised. I hadn't really kept up with it, so I didn't realize the lefties were the bad guys. But just even some of it, you know, just some of the tongue-in-cheek just kind of rolled my eyes at some of the lines. Like, okay, but we'll see. I'm very tentative. Yay! You're on thin ice with me, The Hunt.
I can tell you, odds are that was the best marketing thing that could have happened for that film, though.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I bet you a lot of people, well, I don't know. I think more people will see it than maybe initially would have. I don't know. I'm not hearing a groundswell on social media about it. Like, it's finally here.
People are focused on.
True. Yeah, we'll see. So those are your call-outs for this week. What choices would you make? Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Coming up next week, Matt, it's going to be Onward, the latest film from Pixar. And our martial arts marathon will continue. I'm hoping, Matt, that we are on the upswing with the martial arts marathon. What are we doing next week? Come drink with me. That's not a title I would have anticipated. Like, I've seen The Drunken Master, but I haven't seen Come Drink with Me.
Yeah, it's kind of obviously Lady Snowblood is the kind of the Oren kind of homage, or where Oren came from, but there is some of that. It's more like that. It's kind of like a femme fatale, female warrior kind of thing.
Okay, we need to talk too. What's going on with you in Portrait of a Lady on Fire?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked to see if it's playing. It was not playing last week, so we'll see if it's playing this week.
Because I would call an audible on that, or even over Onward. I'm telling you, man, that thing, you have to see it. You absolutely have to see it.
Well, with all this build-up, it better be freaking good if you're going to make me miss a Pixar movie for it.
We'll see. We'll see if it's playing around you. All right. That's going to be the big show for this week. Shoot us an email, feedback@thefirstrun.com. Check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Do a search for and Instagram. Do a search for The First Run. Scroll. Eventually you will find us. Go over Apple Podcasts and give us a review, and we'll read it on the air. It'll help other people find the show. Well, I hope you enjoyed this kind of rather subdued, relaxed episode this week. Next week we'll come back roaring. There'll be some cans being banged and some violence, and I'll probably swear, and we'll see how it all goes. But this one was a nice, soothing episode. Sibilance. Cellar door. Crinkle some papers.
Yeah, you're really creeping me out right now. Please stop.
All right, we're going to take an extended break. We'll be right back in a period of time. Enjoy this stinger this week from the One-Armed Swordsman. I laughed out loud, Matt, when this one hit, so enjoy, folks.
What's wrong?